There are many secret societies rumoured to be out there. Organisations that are said to pull the strings of the world. These groups have been both credited and blamed for various things, great and small. They're the subject of many conspiracy theories and speculations. You may have heard of the Illuminati. It's been referenced in everything from music to books to movies to games. Yet for all that we think we know about it, there's so much more that we don't. Sit back, take a breath, and listen as we shed light on the Illuminati. In Latin, the term Illuminati is the plural of illuminatus, meaning enlightened. Throughout history, the name has been given to many real and fictitious groups. Traditionally, the name commonly refers to the Bavarian Illuminati. They were an Enlightenment-era secret society founded on May 1st, 1776. Today, Bavaria is a part of Germany. What did this infamous group do, and why have they become irrefutably influential? The Bavarian Illuminati goals were simple enough. The society was founded as a means to fight against superstition, religious influence over public life, the proliferation of knowledge, and to safeguard us from abuses of state power. The order of the day, they wrote in their general statuses, is to put an end to the machinations of the purveyors of injustice, to control them without dominating them. Today, the term Illuminati is used to reference many different organizations that have claimed to have some connection to the original Bavarian Illuminati or other secret societies. However, these claims have never been proven. Throughout the decades, many have claimed that secret societies conspire to control world affairs by planting agents in governments and corporations to gain political power and influence. They are also said to be masterminding events to establish a new world order. Let's go back to where it all began. Or at least where they would like us to think it all began. Back in the year 1773, Adam Weishaupt became a professor of practical philosophy and canon law at the University of Ingolstadt. Weishaupt was the only non-clerical professor at an institution run by Jesuits. Later on that year, Pope Clement XIV dissolved the institution. However, the Jesuits of Ingolstadt wouldn't bend. They managed to hold on to some power at the university. The Jesuits made frequent attempts to discredit and frustrate non-clerical staff, mainly when the course material consisted of anything they regarded as Protestant or liberal. Weishaupt became extremely anti-clerical and decided to begin spreading the Enlightenment ideals through some sort of secret society composed of like-minded individuals. Weishaupt looked into Freemasonry but found it to be costly and not open to his ideas. With nowhere to turn, he founded his society. Weishaupt's group was to have a system of grades or ranks based on those in Freemasonry, however, with his plan. The original name for his new order was Bunda Perfectibilisten, which translates to the Covenant of Perfectibility, and the members of the group became known as Perfectibilists. On May 1st, 1776, Weishaupt, along with 4 students, formed the Perfectibilists, who used the Owl of Minerva as their symbol. All members of the society had to use aliases within. Weishaupt adopted the pseudonym of Spartacus. Law students Massenhausen, Bauhoff, Mers, and Suter became respectively Ajax, Agathon, Tiberius, and Erasmus Roterodamus. In April 1778, the order changed their name to the Illuminatenorden, or Order of Illuminati. Massenhausen was initially the most active member in terms of society expansion. He recruited Xavier von Zwack, a former pupil of Weishaupt, while studying in Munich. It wasn't long before Massenhausen's enthusiasm soon became a liability in Weishaupt's eyes, as later on he became erratic due to his love life. Weishaupt passed control of the Munich group to Zwack. In 1778, Massenhausen graduated and left Bavaria. At the time of his departure, the order had a nominal membership of 12. Zwack immediately applied himself to recruiting more talented and mature candidates. Most prized by Weishaupt was Hertel, a childhood friend and a canon of the Munich Frauenkirche. By the end of summer 1778, the order had 27 members in 5 commands: Ingolstadt, Munich, Ravensburg, Freisinger, and Eichstätt. During this early period, the order had 3 grades of novice, minerval, and illuminated minerval. Only the minerval class involved a complicated ceremony. During induction, the candidate was given a password and a set of secret signs. Weishaupt used a mutual espionage system which kept him informed of all members' character and activities. His favourites went on to become members of the ruling council. Some of the novice members were allowed to recruit. Christians of good character were actively sought, with Jews and pagans expressly excluded, along with women, monks, and other secret societies. Favoured candidates were docile, wealthy, willing to learn, and aged between 18 and 30. Weishaupt began finding it difficult to dissuade some of his members from joining the Freemasons, so he decided to join the older order as a means to acquire the material he needed to expand his ritual. In February 1777, he was admitted to Lodge Prudence of the Rite of Strict Observance. However, his progress through the 3 degrees of Blue Lodge Masonry taught him nothing of the higher degrees he was looking to exploit. The following year, a priest named Abbé Marotti told Zwack that these inner secrets rested on knowledge of the primitive church and the older religion. Zwack convinced Weishaupt that their order should begin friendly relations with Freemasonry to get whatever they needed to set up their lodge. During December 1778, the addition of the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry was thought of as a secondary project. Without difficulty, a warrant was granted by the Grand Lodge of Prussia, known as the Royal York for Friendship. The new lodge was designated as Theodore of the Good Counsel to flatter the Elector of Bavaria, Charles Theodore. Theodore of the Good Counsel was founded on March 21st, 1779 in Munich and was quickly packed with Illuminati. The first master was a man called Radl, who was eventually persuaded to go back to his home in Baden. By July of that year, Weishaupt's order ran the lodge. The society's next step involved gaining its independence from their Grand Lodge. This was done so by establishing Masonic relations with the Union Lodge of Frankfurt, who was affiliated with the Premier Grand Lodge of England. With the proper relations in place, Lodge Theodore became independently recognized and thus declared its independence. As a mother lodge, it could now create lodges of its own. During a recruiting drive of Frankfurt-based Masons, Weishaupt's lodge gained the allegiance of one of its key members, Adolf Freiherr Knigge. Knigge was recruited late in 1780 at a convention of the Rite of Strict Observance by Costanzo Marchesi di Costanzo, a fellow Freemason and infantry captain in the Bavarian army. Whilst in his 20s, Knigge had reached the highest grades of his order and had big plans for its reform. However, no one else in his lodge was interested in supporting his ideas. Knigge was intrigued when Costanzo told him that the order that he wanted to create already existed. Knigge and 3 of his friends immediately wanted to learn more about this order, so Costanzo showed them material regarding the Minerval grade. This grade had been banned in Bavaria, but it was common knowledge in the Protestant German states. Knigge's 3 companions became disillusioned and wanted nothing more to do with Costanzo, but Knigge persisted. He was rewarded for his persistence in November 1780 when he received a letter from Weishaupt. Knigge's connections in and out of Freemasonry made him an ideal recruit. Knigge was flattered by this attention. Weishaupt managed to acknowledge and pledge to support Knigge's interest in alchemy and the higher sciences. Knigge replied to Weishaupt, outlining his plans for the reform of Freemasonry as the strict observance began questioning its origins. Weishaupt gave Knigge the task of recruiting before taking part in the higher grades of the order. Knigge accepted the responsibility on the condition that he would be able to choose his own recruiting grounds. A lot of Masons found Knigge's description of the new Masonic order appealing and quickly enrolled in the Illuminati's Minerval grade. At this time, Knigge appeared to believe in the most serene superiors which Weishaupt claimed to serve. However, his inability to talk about the higher degrees of the order became more and more embarrassing. That didn't stop Weishaupt from giving him another task. Weishaupt provided Knigge with material to produce pamphlets that outlined the activities of the outlawed Jesuits. Eventually, Knigge's inability to answer his recruits' questions regarding the higher grades made his position increasingly difficult. Knigge wrote to Weishaupt to inform him of his problems. In January 1781, Weishaupt finally confessed that his superiors and the supposed antiquity of the order were fictions, and the higher degrees hadn't been written yet. Surprisingly, Knigge took this news in his stride. Weishaupt sent him all of the data that he had written thus far, and promised Knigge a free hand in the creation of the higher degrees. Knigge used this opportunity to make the order a vehicle for his ideas. His new approach would make the Illuminati more engaging to proposed members in the Protestant kingdoms of Germany. In November 1781, the Areopagus gave Knigge 50 florins to journey to Bavaria, which he did. Meeting and savouring the generosity of other Illuminati along the way. The order had now extended profound internal departments. The Eichstätt administration had formed an independent province in July 1780, and a fracture was growing between Weishaupt and the Areopagus, who found him unreasonable, brutal, and contradictory. Knigge fitted comfortably into the role of mediator. In negotiations with the Areopagus and Weishaupt, Knigge recognized 2 problematic ranges. Weishaupt's emphasis on the recruitment of university students indicated that senior posts in the order frequently had to be appointed by young men with little practical knowledge. Secondly, the anti-Jesuit ethos of the order at its origin had become a general anti-religious sentiment, which Carnegie knew would be a dilemma in recruiting the senior Freemasons that the order now attempted to attract. Carnegie keenly felt the stifling grip of traditional Catholicism in Bavaria and understood the anti-religious sentiments produced in the liberal Illuminati. He also saw the adverse reaction these same feelings would cause in Protestant states, hindering the spread of the order in Greater Germany. Both the Areopagus and Weishaupt felt powerless to do anything less than give Carnegie a free hand. He had the connections within and outside of Freemasonry that they needed. He had the experience as a ritualist to build their proposed gradual structure, where they had ground to a halt at Illuminatus Minor, with only the Minerval grade below and the most insignificant sketches of higher grades. The only limitations required were the need to consider the highest grades' inner secrets, and the obligation of submitting his new grades for approval. Meanwhile, the scheme to develop Illuminatism as a recognized branch of Freemasonry had stalled. Even though Lodge Theodore was in their control, a chapter of elect masters assigned to it only had one member from the order, and still had a lawful advantage to the craft lodge controlled by the Illuminati. The chapter would be challenging to influence. Areopagus formed a natural barrier to Lodge Theodore, becoming the first mother lodge of a new illuminated Freemasonry. A treaty of cooperation was signed between the order and the chapter, and by the end of January 1781, 4 daughter lodges had been created. Still, independence was not in the chapter's agenda. Costanza wrote to the Royal York, identifying the discrepancy between the fees sent to their new Grand Lodge and the service they had experienced in return. Reluctant to lose the revenue, the Royal York offered to bestow the higher secrets of Freemasonry on a delegate that their Munich brethren would dispatch to Berlin. Costanza duly set off for Prussia on April 4, 1780. With directions to negotiate a reduction in Theodore's fees whilst he was there. On the way, he managed to debate with a Frenchman on the subject of a lady with whom they were sharing a carriage. Before they reached Berlin, the Frenchman sent a message ahead to the king accusing Costanza of being a spy. He was only released from prison with the aid of the Grand Master of Royal York and was ousted from Prussia, having achieved nothing. Carnegie's original plan to get a constitution from London would, they realized, have been seen through by the chapter. Until they could take over other Masonic lodges that their branch couldn't control, they were happy to rewrite the 3 degrees for the lodges they managed. On January 20th, 1782, Carnegie formulated his new system of grades for the order. These were arranged in 3 classes. Class 1, the nursery, consisting of the novitiate, the Minerval and Illuminatus Minor. Class 2, the Masonic grades. The 3 Blue Lodge grades of Apprentice, Companion and Master were separated from the higher Scottish grades of Scottish Novice and Scottish Knight. Class 3, the Mysteries. The Lesser Mysteries were Priest and Prince's grades, followed by the Greater Mysteries in the grades of Mage and King. It is unlikely that the rituals for the Greater Mysteries were ever written. Carnegie's recruitment from German Freemasonry was far from accidental. He targeted the Masters and Wardens, the men who ran the lodges and were usually able to place the entire lodge at the Illuminati authority. In Aachen, Baron de Witt,